Welcome to Turkistan TV News. Uyghurs commemorate Baren Revolution, urge world to act against Chinese genocide. The print news. Members of the Turkistani or Uyghur diaspora, led by the Turkistan Government-in-Exile in Istanbul, the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and the Canadian cities of Toronto and Edmonton, peacefully demonstrate to commemorate Baren Revolution that erupted on April 5, 1990, which became known as the Baren Massacre. In the spring of 1990, Baren Township, near Kashgar, in Chinese-occupied East Turkestan, suffered under a reign of Chinese terror unlike any other. As part of its decades-long campaign of colonization, forced assimilation, and population control, China's government was forcing Uyghurs and other Turkic women to abort their babies. The villagers of Baren finally had enough. At the time, they had suffered under 41 years of Chinese colonization and occupation, and they have just seen 250 local women robbed of their babies. So they peacefully protested, and when that failed, they took up arms to defend themselves from the Chinese invaders. The Chinese occupation forces responded by flooding Baren Township with People's Liberation Army soldiers, and they began a massive massacre of innocent civilians, including women and children. According to different sources, anywhere from hundreds to thousands of innocent Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples were massacred with heavy weaponry and airstrikes. Dozens of East Turkistani in Istanbul condemned the Organization for Islamic Cooperation, OIC, for remaining silent against China's ongoing genocide and urged Turkey and the Turkish people to act against China's genocide in East Turkestan. We condemn the silence of Muslim world and Muslim organizations like the Organization for Islamic Cooperation for not only standing silent, but also supporting China's genocide of the Muslim Turkic peoples of occupied East Turkestan, said Fatih Magul, the Istanbul representative of the East Turkestan Government-in-Exile. We call on the Turkish state and the Turkish people to act against the genocide of their fellow Turkic brothers and sisters in East Turkestan, she added. In Washington, D.C., the East Turkestan Government-in-Exile along with the East Turkestan National Awakening Movement held a demonstration with over a dozen Uyghurs in front of the White House, where they urged the United States to act against China's genocide in East Turkestan, as well as the growing Chinese hegemony. Governments, including the government of the United States, must pressure the International Criminal Court to start investigations before United Nations Human Rights Commissioner Michelle Bachelet's visit to East Turkestan in May. Furthermore, governments, especially the United States government, must also file parallel case at the International Court of Justice, said Prime Minister Salih Khudair of the East Turkestan Government-in-Exile. We again urge United States government to uphold its commitments to freedom and human rights by supporting East Turkestan and its peoples by recognizing East Turkestan as an occupied country, accepting more Uyghur refugees, and being a voice of freedom and justice on the international stage. We urge the United States government and its allies across the world to support East Turkestan in the same way that they are supporting Ukraine, he added. In Toronto, Canada, the East Turkestan Government-in-Exile along with the East Turkestan Youth Association of Canada held a march to commemorate the Baren Massacre and urged Canadian government to act to end China's campaign of colonization, genocide, and occupation in East Turkestan. We urge Canada to uphold its treaty obligations and act against China's ongoing genocide in East Turkestan, said Haji Mahmud, the Deputy Prime Minister of East Turkestan Government-in-Exile. We also call on Canada's government to secure the immediate release of Uyghur Canadian citizen Hossein Jalil, who has been unlawfully imprisoned by China for past 16 years, he added. The East Turkestan Government-in-Exile honors all those killed during the Baren Revolution of April 1990 as martyrs, and sees it as a symbol of East Turkestan's will to restore their independence. Iltaber from East Turkestan TV News reported.